I hope your day is going pretty well so far. Today, we'll go over the best weapons you can get for your main DPS. And there's also something that not a lot of people are talking about, which is not only free, but also helps you level up your character, weapons, and gives you free pulls on the standard and limited banner. So, let's get started. Please keep in mind that all of these informations that I'm talking about is from CBD2, and I'm addressing the top 8 most likely DPSs. These are Jiyan, Calcharo, Yinlin, Danjin, Encore, Lingyang, Chixia, and finally Rover. I know there are other characters that can also be the main DPS, and because this is Wuthering Waves, you can even have supports playing the main DPS role if you really wanted to. But I would say that they're far better in their own categories, and if you'd like me to, I can make future videos on them as well. So there are 3 main ways you can actually get the best weapons for your main DPS at the current moment. These are either from the weapon banners, the free weapon selector when you reach Union level 45, and finally there are weapons from the battle passes, which are actually pretty good. If you're starting Wuthering Waves, however, you can't necessarily get the best weapons for your characters because if you're at Union level 45, it takes an entire month to get there. So what are you going to do in that 1 month period? Well, you can get the 4 stars that are on the standard or beginner banners, which can not only help you get the 5 stars that you want, but it can also help you get the 4 stars that are pretty good. Now that we know some of the fastest ways to get some of the fairly good weapons, let's talk about which ones you should look out for. Also, as for the mystery items that I talked about earlier, it's actually the level gift packs, because for every X amount of levels that you can get resources such as XP potions, in-game credits, and both the standard and limited banner pulls. So this is something that you should be looking out for every time you level up, because it's going to be in the shop and it should be free. So it's really nice for everyone. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get started. So the first character we'll talk about is Calcharo. He does the most damage and uses basic attacks, which is super important to keep in mind. So for his free-to-play option, I would recommend the Helios Cleaver, which increases the attack percentage of the character. For his 5-star, I would recommend the Lustrous Razor, which not only increases his attack percentage, but also increases the energy regen, which, if you didn't know, helps you get his ultimate faster. And finally, it also increases the Resonance Liberation damage by 14%, which stacks up to 2 times, which technically increases the ultimate by 28%. So for his best in slot, you should look out for the Autumntrace because it not only gives you a crit rate of 20%, but it also increases your attack by 64% and can be triggered over and over again if you use the basic attack damage. And speaking of battle passes, I'm actually giving away 3 of them to those that subscribe and join the Discord. To be eligible, make sure you join the giveaway at 11 AM EST on Twitch, which is on May 22nd. If you'd also like me to suffer by doing 100 push-ups, or things like that, then you can also watch me do that on Twitch. Now let's move on to Danjin. So for Danjin, her free-to-play weapon is the Sword 18, which not only increases the user's attack percentage, but also increases their heavy attack damage percentage as well. For the 5-star selector, you want to go with the Emerald of Genesis. The reason why I say this is because it not only increases your crit rate by about 24%, but it also increases your energy regen by 25% and also increases your attack by 12%, which stacks up to 2 times, which technically gives you an increased attack percentage of 24%. And finally, her best in slot is actually the Emerald of Genesis once again. However, you can also use the Lumingloss, which is the battle pass weapon if you'd like, but comes at a close second place. Now let's move on to Jiyan. So the cool thing about Jiyan is that you want to focus on his ultimate, which actually uses the heavy attacks. Remember, Calcharo uses the basic attacks for his ultimate, but Jiyan uses the heavy attacks. So for the free-to-play option, I would recommend the Helios Cleaver because it just gives you an increased damage boost, and for his 5-star selector, I would go with the Lustrous Razor because of the fact that it increases the energy regen, which not only gives you your ultimate faster, but it also increases your attack percentage as well. His best in slot, of course, is his own unique weapon, which is called the Verdant Summit. Now, why is Verdant Summit so good? Well, it gives you a 50% crit damage main stat, but he also increases the damage of all resonance attributes by 24%, and also every time he comes onto the field or he uses his ultimate, he increases the heavy attack damage bonus by 48%, which stacks up to 2 times. So technically, the bonus damage is 96%, which lasts for 14 seconds. Now let's move on to Yinlin. I know a lot of people want her for the sub-DPS role to help someone like Calcharo, for instance. However, due to her playtime on the field, which is actually a little bit longer than other sub-DPSs, she's actually fairly viable as the main DPS as well, right? For the free-to-play option, I would recommend the Jinzhou Keeper. So the Jinzhou Keeper simply gives you an extra attack percentage boost and also actually gives you a little bit of HP as well when you come into the field. For the 5-star, you can use the Cosmic Ripples, but it's meant to be the sub-DPS role because it increases the basic attack and the energy regen to do quick damage and build up your Resonance Liberation, which is the ultimate. So I would recommend to not use that for Yinlin. However, her best in slot is of course her own unique weapon, which is the Stringmaster. And the reason why this weapon is so good is because it gives you a 36% crit rate, and it also increases the damage bonus of all resonance attributes by 24%. And where her resonance skill hits a target, it increases her damage by 48%. And if she's not on the field, her attack increases by an additional 48%, which is why you can see the argument that she's supposed to be in the sub-DPS role. But like I said before, she's perfectly viable in the main DPS role as well. Alright, now let's move on to Lingyang. So the interesting thing about Lingyang is the fact that his ultimate is a buffer for his forte skill, which is the bar above your health. With this, you want to look for the energy regen to build his ultimate as fast as possible. So for the free-to-play option, I would either recommend the Arcado or the Gauntlets 21D. While they both give energy regen, there's a slight difference in their abilities. So for the Mercado, it gives you the energy consorto when you use your resonance skill. However, for the Gauntlets 21D, if you're really good at dodging or dashing, you should go for this because it increases the attack by 16%, also increases the counterattack damage by 100%, lasting for 8 seconds. And when you successfully get the counterattack, it also increases the Resonator's HP by 10%. And for his 5-star weapon, I would recommend the Abyss Surges, which has quite a lot of decent benefits. So not only does his energy regen increase by 26%, which helps boost the ultimate, but he also increases the resonance skill damage by 20% if you do any basic attack. And what the coolest thing is that if you use the resonance skill and it hits a target, then it increases the damage by a further 20%, which is exactly why you can see how this is also his best in slot weapon. Alright, so moving on to Chixia, her best free-to-play option is the Undying Flame, which gives you a attack percentage bonus, which is pretty useful. And also if she comes onto the field, it increases her resonance skill damage by 40%. However, her best 5-star weapon is the Static Mist, which not only gives you crit rate of 24% and also increases the energy regen by 26%. And when you perform the outro skill, you increase the Resonator's attack by 20%. For Chixia, her best in slot is again the Static Mist, but the Thunderbolt comes at a close second. Alright, moving on to Encore. Her best free-to-play option is the Jinzhou Keeper, which not only increases your attack percentage, but also when she comes onto the field, she increases her attack by 16% and her HP is also increased by a further 20%. Her best 5-star selector is the Cosmic Ripples. And the reason why it's so good is because it not only gives you an increased attack of 54%, but it also increases the energy regen by 26%. And when you're using the basic attack, it increases the attack damage bonus by 6.4%, but stacks up to 5 times, which means that if you hit an enemy for 5 times and still doesn't die, she'll be doing an increased 32% attack damage to the enemy. This is the exact reason why Cosmic Ripples is also her best in slot. However, the Augment is also a pretty good battle pass weapon if you want to go for more of a crit rate style build, and when you use your ultimate, it increases the caster's attack by 50%. which is a pretty nice boost. And finally, we have our main character. So for the main character, the free-to-play options are either Commando of Conviction or the Lunar Cutter. They're both pretty good because they give you an increased attack percentage. However, there's a slight difference in their description because the Commando of Conviction gives you an increased attack of 30% when you use your intro skill. However, the Lunar Cutter gives you 6 stacks of Oath upon entering the battlefield, which means that each stack deals 4%, which can be triggered every 12 seconds, which is an increase of 24% extra damage. So I would probably go with the Commando of Conviction because it's very simple. Just pop onto the field and boom, you get an extra 30% of attack damage bonus. The best in slot is the Emerald of Genesis. The reason why the Emerald of Genesis is so good, it not only gives you the crit rate increase of 24%, but it also, once again, gives you an energy regen of 26%, but also increases your resonance skill by 24%, which is exactly why the best in slot is once again the Emerald of Genesis. Or if you'd like to go for the Battle Pass, then the Lumingloss is also fairly good as well because it increases the attack damage, and also when you use the resonance skill, if you either use the basic attack damage or the heavy attack damage, it increases their damage by 64%. Alright, so those were the best weapons for the DPS, whether you're starting out or trying to look for the best weapon overall. I hope this, bit of a longer guide proves to be more useful to you. And if you liked my guide, please consider supporting me by liking, subscribing, and making sure to join the Discord to stay up to date on future events. If you'd also like me to make videos on support and sub-DPSs, then comment down below. Alright, have a nice day.